Let's go. Game time. The standard is the standard. That's our motto. That's our creed.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Better Baby Daddy podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, John Latchman.
And I am your other co-host, Kelly Burgess.
And today we are sitting down with the positive and powerful D.Johns. D.Johns, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Well, I had to think about who you were talking about. The powerful. Yeah, I like that, man. I like that. D.Johns, man. I'm a husband of one wife, father of five, grandfather of one. I am a corporate exec turned podcaster by choice and force. I was exited out of corporate October 3rd, 2022. I have not been back by the grace of God. Doesn't mean it has been easy, but it has been worth it.
All right. Wow. So that's an interesting transition, going from the corporate world to being, as you phrased it, forced into podcasting. What was that transition like from a finance perspective, a spiritual perspective, from a mental, emotional perspective?
It was scarier than it is today. I've learned to adapt and adopt. I am a man of faith, so if that ruffles feathers, I apologize in advance. But I was praying for a change. Like corporate wasn't satisfying. I had progressed, and the money wasn't doing it. The positions weren't doing it, and I realized that I was creating a gap between me and my family, who I was always in the house with physically, not necessarily emotionally and mentally all the time. So, as I like to say, I climbed the corporate ladder and only to find out it was leaned against the wrong building. So, we went through acquisitions. You know, I had progressed to the point of a VP of the global supply chain. I've been in government contracts. So getting things to and from places around the globe and everything attached to that was my world. Spent a lot of time overseas. My family, we lived overseas for 3 years in Dubai. I came back into the executive role and I was gone a lot. And like I said, even when I was home, I wasn't necessarily present. And I kind of leaned into the corporate space because that's where I thought I was finding success. So, I kind of double, triple down on that. And then as some things happened, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. You know, it was I could perform the part, but I didn't look the part. We were going public and there was some other things happening, and they brought in somebody else that fit the school picture,
The aesthetic.
if you will. Yeah, fit the better word, the aesthetic. And I was transitioned out, and like I like to say that was my doctorate degree, right? A lot of people don't get to see what it is to go public or make decisions or have input. So I don't regret it. I'm not bitter about it. Just be careful what you pray for, right? And then don't challenge God when he actually gives it to you. So I kind of wasted a lot of time. It wasn't necessarily corporate to podcasting. It was corporate to I want to be an entrepreneur. I had started the podcast before my family was in we were kind of in the YouTube space while we were overseas trying to just communicate our story to people that might not get the experience of living overseas. And then my wife and I had a podcast, and then God put Dear Son on my heart. September of 2020, September of 2021, I put up episode 1, and I've been kind of rocking ever since. So it's just been kind of chronicling the journey of me dealing with me, really. Like Dear Son, what I don't say a lot is, Dear Son, what I wish my father told me is the full title. And it's not because my father wasn't present or wasn't there. The tools he had were the tools that he had. His father was around, but didn't talk to him. His father died when my father was like 20 or 21. So he grew up as a man without a father. I became a man putting distance between me and my father, and only to kind of realize that, man, we should have been having these conversations at 20 and 25 instead of 40 and 45.
Wow. Amen, man.
Wow.
And that comes through clear as a bell on your podcast. That's what drew me as we were talking pre-show. That's what drew me to reach out to you, because it's so authentic, and you could tell that you and your co-hosts and all your guests have walked that walk, and you are men figuring it out in real time. You know, you're not sitting up on high saying, hey, let me just fist this knowledge. It's like, yo, I'm experiencing this thing. How's it looking at you? Yo, I'm learning this. And it's just refreshing. As I told you, your podcast speaks to me and my sons. You know, I think that being a father that is cognizant that, man, my dad was well-meaning but limited in what he could do. I want to do something different. Puts us in a space to seek out answers. When did you know you were kind of on to something with Dear Son? When did it like, yo, this is speaking to a need?
Man, that's a question I haven't answered. And I probably run from it. I probably ran from it for a few years because I'm not great at receiving acknowledgments and praise. Not that that's what you were doing. I'm probably using poor words, but I don't like pointing to me about anything. I like getting things done. I like creating success. I like being successful, even in corporate. Like I didn't need to be celebrated publicly. Just pay me. Like show me in the bonus. I'm cool with. I don't need to be in a newsletter. I don't care about none of that. So for me, starting was the first episode was the most difficult, and I guess it's kind of like the artist's first album. Your whole life leads up to that. So it was probably 30 minutes. It probably took me 5 hours to do. And it was solo. I started solo, never intending to have guests. And then I brought my dad on either episode 4 or 5. And that was a great conversation. And I was like, oh, I could probably do this a lot easier because I like having conversations. I don't like hearing me talk for the sake of me talking. Like I've been in a position where you have to walk in a room and be the smart person and communicate and exude confidence and lead people. I don't need that itch scratched anymore. So I'm genuinely interested in having meaningful conversations. Just like now, I already understand like this is going to be a great conversation for me. That's why I'm in it. I don't know how it's going to work out for y'all, but that's how every episode for me has worked out in that fashion. And when people started gravitating to it, it was like, of course, you ask your close circle or those you have immediate access to. And then when those people wanted to start coming back on and they were recommending people, they would say, hey. And then you start to get the messages. When it got beyond messages from people that I knew and you kind of expect, like it's the obligatory good job. Not that that's what they were doing. That's just how my mind works. I'm working on it, people. But when you when people that don't have any connection to you let you know that something you did or said, dare I say, change their life and put them on a path to seeing life different. I was like, oh, okay. I got it. So that was probably long-winded answer to probably say year, maybe 18 months in, 24 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
That is so powerful right there. I'm thinking back when you were talking right there, I thought back to a DM I sent you, and you might not even remember the DM, but I said, it was one of your stories. You had said something about your journey and going from this to where you are now, and you were showing behind the scene things. And I said, every episode, does it feel like therapy for you? And you said, absolutely. And you'll know when it doesn't. And I was like,
so now I'm
that's what it
connecting
is
all
for
of
us.
these dots now, man. I'm
All right.
connecting. Y'all would hit me from different angles, and then the podcast was something. I was like, okay, I got it now. But yeah, that's the cheat code for me is that it's therapeutic. I never present it as therapy because I don't want anybody to confuse it. I'm not licensed. I don't have any doctorals or anything like that.
Yeah.
We just having conversations, man.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things for Kelly and I is every time we sit down, whether we're listening, whether we're speaking, it's a light bulb comes on somewhere. You're like, oh yeah, that's it. I can apply this to my life. Or while you're actually talking, you're working through a situation that's currently occurring in your own life. And that's the beauty of doing this thing, man. It's literally the most beautiful thing to sit down with another man and solve a problem, sometimes unintentionally. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's it.
I got accused early and sometimes often of my podcast being slow because my mind is actually turning. I edit, but I don't edit it out, not for dramatic effect, but because I don't want this platform to present me as an expert. I wanted to be clear that I'm thinking and working through these things real life. They hit me as they hit you. I don't do advanced questions. We don't do any pregame. And it's like, hey, the conversation's going to work or it's not. And
Hey,
I haven't had to can one yet.
Hey, that's a beautiful thing.
shoot.
And it comes through. I just listened on the way up. I got about a 40-minute drive from my house. And I listened to either your last episode or the second to last, where the gentleman was talking about having to win his family back. And that climb, um, his reluctance, and your pacing of the questions and how you were able to tease certain things out of him. It's evident it comes from a genuine place of I want to know as opposed to I want to produce something. And you know, I could relate to that gentleman of you have just burned the house down and you are starting from worse than scratch. You're starting from scratch with no trust. And I remember I remember him saying he had to work on him and he wasn't going to be able to, I can't remember the wording, forgive me if I'm misquoting, but basically he wasn't going to be blessed until he was able to submit to God. Like, his wife wasn't going to be able to submit to him until he submitted to God.
Yeah.
And then you asked him, did you do that work for them? Or did you do it, were you doing the work for him? And then he explained that you can't do it for them. You got to do it for God. And then you got to do it for yourself. But the way you just gave him, just like the barbershop episode, you gave that thing space to breathe, is really a special talent because we want to talk.
I appreciate that, man.
No,
Thank you.
I appreciate you. So let's speak to some of the things you've learned about yourself and men in general. I'm always thinking about if I was sitting with somebody 30 years or 40 years younger than me, like if I was on the forefront of my journey as a father. What are some things you discovered that are just universal truths on being successful as a man in the role of a father and a husband?
I steer clear of universal and sweeping, broad stroking results. But
Fair
what I
enough.
found, and I'll start with me is using my words. Man, a lot of the mismanagement of my household was me talking to me in my head, having conversations with people without them, specifically my
Mhm.
wife. Like I would go through the whole narrative of what this is gonna yield, not include her, and then I would treat her according to the results that were in my head, which makes
Wow.
no sense, but also made perfect sense in the moment. You know what I'm saying? And it's my wife for all of the missteps that I've made as a man, as a leader, she was never scared of the scenario. She was always annoyed with not knowing. And I would try to work through so much being the man, being the leader, because again, the constant reference for me is corporate because that's what had the bulk of my adult attention. I was known to solve problems. That's how I got where I got. It wasn't me schmoozing or, it would, and I think that actually held me back. I'm glad that it paced the way that it paced, but I was never team anybody. I was information, results. Here's a solution. I could point to why this works. And if you want to have a conversation about why you don't think it works, I'm prepared for that too. So to come home and not being able to rattle that off, like at work, I had a big book, like it's the acquisition Bible, we reference it as Federal Acquisition Regulations. And it's kind of like tax law, right? People are annoyed that some people don't pay taxes, but if they're actually following the tax law, that information is available to you too. My life in my house didn't really work like that. There wasn't a chapter or a part or a reference that I can go to and say, okay, I'm taking this approach. And when it didn't come easy to me or it didn't come the same way, I would pass judgment in my head. I would keep things to myself. I would take the long way home. I
Hmm.
would I would do everything to distract me from dealing with it. And enough time would pass that I wouldn't be as annoyed. Never got resolved, but I'd just be less annoyed enough. And I kept finding enough distractions that would keep me off course, slightly off course long enough to where that was how I dealt with it. And then when situations actually couldn't stand me not talking about it and we actually had to talk about it, the result was never what I thought it would be. But I still, it was like it's embarrassment. My whole story is a story of embarrassment at the root. Like the distance I put between me and my dad was I moved out too early. I didn't like his rules. He wasn't going to force information on me. I was determined not to get information from him. I realized I needed him, but now I'm embarrassed because when he was offering, I'm being a boy, you know what I'm saying? Claiming to be a man. So then my response to that was, I'm just gonna do man stuff and he's gonna see it. And I ran into several walls that he had already run into. And that was the aha moment. Unfortunately, it takes, like, we love to bond over foolishness. Like, you got shot? Me too, man. Oh yeah, we both got shot. Like, what? No, that's not the badge of honor that I want. Cool. Tell me how it felt for you. Yeah. And it's funny, but it's not. But that's a lot of how my life was. Like, man, I mismanaged my finances. My dad had already done that. So you only see your parents at the stage you see them. Like, you don't see the before. And we didn't have a lot of conversations about, man, when I was your age, I didn't think he had stories that related to the direction my life was going. So I talked to him even less. Just like, man, using my words again, around the mulberry bush answer is like, it's really saying, like, giving it a chance to actually take shape instead of shaping it in your mind and running off the tracks with it.
Right. Let's talk about that journey from young D.Johns to where he is right now. And, you said, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, there wasn't a lot of interaction with your father along that journey at certain points. I hope that's correctly articulated. So you're out there trying to navigate things yourselves, running into dead ends, tripping over potholes, those type of things. What were the tools that you attempted to develop by yourself and hopefully eventually did develop by yourself that have really served you in your current position in life?
Yeah, to be fair to my father, there was a lot of interactions, less conversations. I was always a few miles away, right? And even when I left the house, I left the house and moved into a house that my mother had inherited, and I was paying them rent. So it was never an estrangement. Always got to be fair to him saying that. But again, it was just that, like, the way I grew up, I had the skills of home maintenance. So I actually moved into a house that had a yard that had to be maintained. So I knew basic like if something, like, I was aware of how to take care of a house, right? So I could survive in that manner. But we never had conversations about sex other than don't do it. Right. So my lessons in sex was sex. Right. Yeah. And then when things felt a certain way, whether that's physically or emotionally, I didn't think that I could actually talk to him about it because I thought he'd be disappointed in me. And these are all my assumptions, right? Because of my parents were very devout Christians and religion ruled the house. So not only did I think it'd be embarrassing to him, I'm thinking about embarrassing the family. So I would keep myself away when I'm in low points. Now, when I'm in a low point, my dad is probably the first person I'm gonna call. Him and my wife, 1A, 1B. Nice. Which, I mean, there's some people may argue whether that's appropriate or not, but like, just the ability to trust, the trust that he has always demonstrated that I've learned to appreciate over time. He's never turned anything that I said into I told you, or if you had only asked me, or, this is what I was trying to tell you. So it was never that. He was consistent with his message as often as I would listen. And as I got the lesson, we mutually understood that I got the lesson and we move on to the next thing. So it's hard to suggest that I develop tools on my own, and I'm trying not to discount my journey and what I've worked on. I would say problem solving came out of it, but problem solving at the expense of time and opportunity. Like, it's one thing to get a lesson over 5 years that should have taken 30 days. You still got the lesson, And that 5-year lesson may mean more to you, but that 4.5 years or that 4 years and 11 months, you could have been on to something way more meaningful. So I spent a lot of time isolating myself from help. And I've learned later in life that this is one of the things that I put up was like, dear son, ask for help early and accept it immediately. I was terrible at that, and I still have moments where I'm not the greatest at accepting help. The biggest lesson that I've learned in it is it's common sense when we hear it, but a lot of us don't live it. Me specifically, is you need other people.
Yeah.
I would pride myself when they being able to do things. Fun fact, related. My co-host is actually my neighbor, like next door, right? I needed to take a couch upstairs one day. I was calling my son to help me take the couch upstairs, but he was on his game. I was so frustrated that he was on his game, I just put the couch on my back and took it upstairs myself. My neighbor's next door, my son is actually upstairs, but I wanted to prove a point to everybody that I'll do it myself. If I do it myself, had a definition, had a picture in the dictionary, you're looking at it.
That's
The
it.
couch on
I
your
got
back.
it. Yeah. Well, actually, I was bear hugging it and lifting it up stair by stair, bear hug, lift it up
Lord.
stair by
Wow.
stair. I
Wow.
wrecked my back, which I
Yeah.
probably was caused the surgery that I had some years ago. But it's stuff like that where it's like I was terrible at giving. I never want to give people a chance to disappoint me at the expense of me going through stuff that I didn't have to go through alone. So I know you
Yeah.
asked me what tools that I have now because of all of the error, the years that I spent in trying to be everything to everybody that and that wasn't the request. I guess I celebrated having burdens and overcoming them.
Okay.
That just became the repetition.
Your journey with your father reminds me of the quote, "The teacher will appear when the student is ready." You think that's apropos?
I think it should be the teacher will reappear in my case because he was always
Ah,
there. Yeah, he was
yeah.
always there, but it was a matter of me seeing him again as a
Yeah.
necessary presence.
You said something that really spoke to me as a parent of adult kids, and that you said that your dad never, when you walked things back and you came back to him, or you were in a low moment, he never said, "I told you so," or and man, I salute that man, because as an adult parent, when you give, particularly when you see your children demonstrating patterns, and I think you spoke to this in a previous episode recently, where you begin to see those negative legacy patterns in your children. And it's the
Yep.
last thing, particularly as a man, when you see your boys replicating some of the stuff that completely derailed your life, and you see him playing that same playbook, it is very, very hard to swallow your tongue and just let the Lord dispense the curriculum specific to that kid. One of the hardest things, I didn't know how I was going to be as an adult, a parent of adults, but I didn't think it was going to be this complicated and
Yeah.
and difficult emotionally. So for you to have a pops that
Mhm.
gave you that breath and leash to say and trust that the Lord will walk him back in his way and his time. I'm gonna be here, no condemnation, evidence to lessons learned. Let's move on as men. Um, had you been able to take, now you got teenagers, right? And young adults in the house. Have you been able to take that forward in your parenting journey?
I saw this one developing the moment you started that whole segue. So I'm gonna frame my excuse to sound intelligent.
Mhm, mhm, Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Where's that gumption? We need some gumption for you. Show me some gumption. Mm, mm,
Mm.
mm, mm, mm.
Mm.
Don't want your lip, sweetie. Mm,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Are
gonna
you old
switch
with your?
directions. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Go. No, no, go ahead, El. Go ahead, El.
No. Yeah, I wanted to lean into that multi-generational home. We had a previous guest on, and we had a conversation about, the westernized world really essentially incentivizes people to turn 18 and get out the home, right? I mean, and there's a multitude of variables that play into that. But what is it like being the conductor of a multi-generational home? Mm.
Hey, my mother's from South, so it was some whippers to spend.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Oh
Mhm.
wow. Mhm. Mm. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that right there. Mhm. Mm.
Mm.
Mhm. Mm. Mm.
Mm. Right.
Mm.
Right. Mm. Yeah. How do you and your wife balance how to create that soft landing spot for the kids? Because traditionally fathers we just approach parenting different than the moms. I think we are not like you said, not we're not trying to kick the kids out, but every day we are trying to make them more independent from us. Whereas my experience with the ladies is that nurturing instinct is so strong, um, that shield and that wanting to protect them from the full weight of a decision kind of can be a default. So how did you and your wife over time develop like your approach to, hey, when these situations come up, honey, or when they're not showing certain things I think they should have at this age, this is how we're gonna present a united front. I was gonna ask. They're the same, right, right. Yeah. Mm,
Uh-huh.
mm, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm,
Mm.
mm, mm, mm.
So what you just
Yeah.
said there at the
Hey.
end there, that's very interesting. Oh, so that, the concept of being self-sustainable, is that new to the family, or is that like, "Hey, let's go out here, we're gonna have our garden, we're gonna have our own animals that we butcher?" Is it like that the whole compound idea and concept with the extended family within 100 acres? Mm,
Yeah. Mm,
mm,
mm. Mm,
Mm.
mm,
Mhm.
mm.
Okay. Cool,
Yeah,
man.
we get a
That's
lot of
just an
clarity.
awesome thing. It really is.
Yeah, a lot of clarity in the garden. A lot of clarity comes from being out there, and those lessons do come to us a little later sometimes. But that's one of my happy places too. Um, I want to pivot to speaking of some things to our audience. So as I told you in kind of little show notes in the sense that we're speaking to guys that were similar to us, had been in committed relationships, messed them up, committed relationships with children, made some poor decisions as men. Um, that equals less time with the kids, fractious relationships with the baby mothers. And some of us repeated it a couple of times. And so, one of the comments that I sent you, the last episode or so is that there's that negative compounding interest of bad decisions too. So imagine a guy who's on the front end of that journey, trying to get himself together, maybe not even aware that his kids are churning through some stuff too, and they still need him to be a certain place so they can process things well. And he steps into that barbershop scenario, and he has you and the guys around speaking to him. What would be some initial things that you would want a young brother like that to just have ears to hear for?
Mm.
Mm, 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 mm.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Mm.
mm, mm.
Mm.
And amen.
Man, that so well said. So well said. Kelly and I work with young men on a consistent basis. And one of the things that we repeatedly see is what you just alluded to there and spoke to right there. And is that they're constantly perpetuating an image that they believe society wants them to have. And that image, that external image that they're putting out there is in direct conflict with who they actually are internally. And that internal conflict that occurs between what I'm perpetuating and who I actually am causes all kinds of chaos in the mind and in the heart. And
Yeah.
it eats you alive from the inside. And I know for me personally, I could say, man, I didn't get it until I was about 37. You know, my father wasn't around consistently, so I did a lot of work, made a lot of put myself in a lot of challenging positions and learned a lot of
Yeah.
lessons because those challenges. But like you just said there, 37, I'm lucky I got it at 37 by the grace of God, because there are 50-year-old men out here still trying to live a life that they were never meant to live. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
If you run into
unfortunately
them
it's
a lot,
true.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. You've been so gracious with your time. Truly appreciate that, man. And just all your insight, all your wisdom has been amazing. It's just great to sit down and listen to somebody that is able to articulate themselves the way you are able to articulate yourself in regards to your life experiences and the lessons you've learned. I know Kelly has some closing words that he would love to say.
No, I mean, first of all, thank you. I mean, I know you're very busy. Man, we just thank you for bringing the wisdom. Thank you for your vulnerability about your personal situation. And that's not lost on us. And so you actually spoke to my last question, which is, what do you say to the young cats? We have guys we work with that uh, are are doubling down on the kind of mistakes that we made, and they're good with it. And so in those situations, I guess there's not much that you can say to a person like that except I'll pray for you. But like you guys like to say, if you have ears, let them hear. So no last question, just man, keep doing what you're doing, man. The platform's fabulous, and we'll definitely be tapping in on a regular basis.
No
Absolutely.
problem. Mr. D.Johns, is there anything that you would like to shout out, any of your platforms or anything of that nature before we close it out?
Mm.
All right. Well, we'll definitely be on the lookout for those things and make sure to shout you out any opportunity we get, sir. But in the meantime, that was Mr. D.Johns, and this is the Better Baby Daddy podcast. I am John.
I am Kelly.
Peace.